yes, it is that time again. The time when we are 2 weeks away from the annual occurrence of a fat bloke with a beard going down your chimney and leaving you some presents. I'm not talking about myself. I will not be donning a red jacket and a fake beard, although that is an idea. No, it is that time for the yearly tradition of pretty much every kind of review channel on YouTube to do their top 10 of, well, their top 10, top 20s, whatever, of the year. And I'm going to be doing the albums today, and then we'll might do some on the films of this year and some on the games of this year, although I haven't managed to get that many to actually play my way through this year. But I've got an idea. Disappointing albums I'm thinking of, and bad albums, well, there weren't any spectacularly bad albums I heard this year, so we'll see how it goes. But however, two things we got to do. First of all, remember, these are my top 10. These are what I personally thought were the best albums of the year. So if you think differently, that's fine. If you want to rage off in the comments and have a go at me and call me loads of nasty names because I didn't put Metallica in the top 10 or some crap like that, that's fine. That's your choice. I'll just ignore you. But apart from that, number 2, we got to kick off with some definite honourable mentions that literally missed being in my top 10 by the most smallest of margins, to be honest with you. So let's get into it. So I've actually got 5 honourable mentions to get through. I could have made this a top 15 of the year, but I thought, we'll make it normal for once, or as normal as I can do. And yes, I've got 5 honourable mentions, starting with the new Godflesh album, Post Self. The reason this didn't make it onto the top 10 is much like the rest of these honourable mentions. I just didn't get round to actually listening to it more than once. What I heard on that first listen, absolutely brilliant album, absolutely love it. I can give it a massive thumbs up, a definite recommendation. It's just a kind of dark, industrial, grimy metal that I like. But unfortunately, it didn't sort of hit me in the same way as my top 10 did. So yeah, on the honourable mention, is kicking off with Godflesh and Post Self. Then, up next, we've got Helveti's newest album, Evocation Part 2, their first release with their new singer after the departure of Anna, who's going from the rather excellent Cellar Darling. Now, this is an awesome album. It's very much an acoustic album. I have a great memory of the first time I actually listened to this. Again, haven't had the time to really listen to it properly alone, but when I was listening to this, I was with my mates Joe and Natalie, and we were playing Cards Against Humanity and drinking at the same time. This was in the background, was requested by Natalie for me to stick on in the background, and you'll be hearing more from them too soon, because we have started up the podcast again. More on that later. But yeah, what I heard, I really enjoyed. It's just, again, a case of just not having the time to listen to it that much. Up next, Alice Cooper and Paranormal. This is like a bolt from the blue. Now, I've not really kept up with Alice Cooper albums at all for a long time. But this was on a sale, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. And honestly, absolutely superb album. Like Godflesh, definitely recommend you go check it out. Really cool, sort of awesome old school rock vibe that you'd expect from the Master of Ceremonies known as the Shockman, Alice Cooper. The Shockman? I don't know where that comes from. But again, there was just something not quite sort of impactful on my life, as it were. It had that wow factor, but it didn't quite have the same amount of wow factor for me to quite make it onto my top 10. Up next, another quick one, Cannibal Corpse, Red Before Black. I love Cannibal Corpse. I love death metal, but it's very simple. Just haven't had the time to listen to it enough to let some of the rest to really soak into my consciousness as you find with a lot of Cannibal Corpse releases. However, I will say this is the first Cannibal Corpse album in a while that straight away I've loved. Like, I've loved it, but I know there's more there for me to love. So didn't stick it on the top 10 because I wouldn't know if I did put it on there. It'd probably be at number 10, where it's possibly deserving of being higher than that. And finally, in the honourable mentions, Annihilator and For the Demented. Haven't listened to the whole album yet, basically. I want to, but I haven't got round to it yet. I turned on to this band by Joe from the podcast, so cheers Joe for that, man. But the actual fact is, I've heard a few tracks come up on my MP3 player. Got to listen to the whole album, but what I've heard so far, I've really liked. So maybe I'll do a follow-up sort of thing for these honourable mentions, where I give them more explanations to whether they were really good and what I expected. Anyway, that's it for the honourable mentions. Let's get into the top 10 albums of 2017. In at number 10 is an album I literally only got round to listening to last week, and it is a band called The Dark Element. Now, for those who don't know who The Dark Element are, basically it's Annette, who used to be the lead singer of Nightwish. It's her new band, and now she went away from metal for a while, which is fair enough. Some of the Nightwish fans were somewhat vocal in their hatred of her vocals. I thought she fitted the band quite well myself, really do love her voice, and I'm glad to see her back in metal. But this is her now finally doing her own thing in the scope of the metal genre, as it were, the goth metal genre, and really she owns it. Honestly, this is probably a lot better than it has any rights been for a debut album and from what is essentially a new band, apart from Annette, because they're all obviously only just starting to work together. Really, really fantastic album. I recommend you go check it out. Go check out the singles as well. They've got a couple up on YouTube. Really good album. I hope Annette doesn't go again, hasn't been discouraged too much from the Nightwish fans, the more choosy ones who are having a go at her for taking over from Tarja, which, to be honest with you, hey Nightwish fans, and I am a Nightwish fan, but Nightwish fans, the more hardcore of you, those of you especially who had a go at Annette, would you have rather Annette take over and have the balls to actually have helped the band to continue, or would you have rather your band to have disappeared? Yeah, maybe think on that. Anyway, yes, Annette is back with The Dark Element. Hopefully this isn't just a one-off album and we'll hear more from them, because if it's up to the quality of this for the rest of their albums, then count me all in. In at number 9 is an album I don't think anyone was expecting to be as good as it ended up being, from a band who have never really made a bad album, but a lot of people were kind of critical of them after losing, well, two of the founding members of the Cavalera brothers. I am of course talking about Brazilian's wrecking crew known as Sepultura and their 2017 album Machine Messiah. Admittedly, concept-wise, it is something kind of stolen stroke copied from Fear Factory's albums, but the thrash here is premium grade thrash. This is basically Sepultura going back to the thrash heydays that they had, with a vocalist who has now been a vocalist longer than Max Cavalera was the vocalist for... vocalist? Don't know what that is, went a bit Australian. Longer than Max Cavalera was the vocalist for Sepultura. And they just, all the performances in here are excellent. There's a few songs that you'll need to listen to a few times for them to truly kind of grow on you, but all in all, this is a masterclass in thrash with an interesting idea. Concepts, again, kind of been done to death by Fear Factory, but you know what, it's a concept I kind of enjoy, and that kind of helped my enjoyment of this album. But all in all, definitely an album of the year candidate. In at number 9, Sepultura, Machine Messiah. If you've not checked out any new Sepultura for a while, go check this album out. Honestly, you do not want to miss this one. In at number 8 are those Scottish pirate metalers, the one and only Ailstorm with No Grave But the Sea. Ailstorm have been on an upward trajectory of an increasingly awesome album, and this may very well be the zenith of their piratey powers, I suppose is the best way I can put it. And they've got catchy songs on here. A lot of people got a bit concerned because there's a few kind of metalcore screams on some of the singles, but honestly, that's not a constant recurring thing on this album. And you know what? It's a nice sort of extra string to the bow of the sound of Hailstorm, because in the end, if you can't have a roaring drunk screaming on an album, it's not really a pirate metal album, is it? But all in all, there's only 4 songs about drinking this time. They're maturing, but all in all, the songs are absolutely awesome, really, really catchy, and considering this has the song Effed with an Anchor, had to censor that because, you know, YouTube policy, then yeah, that is one of the best diss songs ever made. And just all in all, even if you like pirate metal or not, I recommend you go check this album, because I think you will find something you like. In at number 7 of an album from a side project of the one only lovable Geordie himself, the one only Ginger, currently of the Wild Hearts. Mutation, for those who don't know, and I'll admit this is my first experience of hearing them, is the very, very dark and extremely heavy music that Ginger creates with his partner in crime on this album, and with previous albums as well. And this is like, I mean, last year I said about how now Nafrak had basically pushed their anger levels to like past level 11 as it was, to produce one of the angriest albums of their career. This has to be one of the angriest and heaviest albums I have heard of Ginger's career, and my god, I love every goddamn second of it. Ginger, you are an absolute genius. I hope you get through the issues you've been going through recently, dude. And for those who are listening to this as well, seriously, go check this out. Free Dark Black by Mutation. If you like it, really extreme but catchy, really heavy, then go check this out. And if you're expecting something like the Wild Hearts just because Ginger's on it, oh, you will be sorely disappointed. In at number 6 is an album that and an artist that I've only got into literally over the last few months, and it is the hauntingly beautiful Jayce Lewis. Her voice is absolutely stunning. Funny enough, I got into her through the newest Mirko album that came out this year. I heard her voice in the background of, I believe the song was called Funeral, and I just fell in love with it, so I thought, you know what, I'll give one of her albums a go. Checked out 1 or 2 songs on YouTube, really enjoyed it. So I bought her newest album, Hispan, and honestly, this is an absolutely gorgeous sounding album. Yes, there is the points of heaviness, but there's a definite sense of frailty to Jayce Lewis' voice. It's interesting that she's been picked up as a support for Ministry's upcoming tour. At the time, I am recording this obviously in December of 2017, but yeah, it'll be interesting how that goes down with the more hardcore metal fan base, because if you're expecting a heavy experience with this album, you won't get that. This isn't the heaviest thing you're going to hear. What you will hear is one of the most ethereally, and I keep using the word beautiful, but that's literally the only way I can put it, ethereally beautiful rock stroke, metal stroke, goth stroke, with folky elements type album there. Really can't quite fully do it justice with words. Just go check her out on YouTube and go check this album out. Absolutely superb, and only missed by a gnat's whisker of being in my top 5. And so we reach my top 5 of the year, and kicking it off is probably my thrash album of the year. Just have a double check. Yep, my thrash album of the year, Creator, Gods in Violence. My good god, what an album this is. And Creator have always been kind of bubbling under the surface, as it were, as one of those bands that only real thrash maniacs, as it were, seem to always sort of reference, and for good reason. They have got some superb stuff. They should be like up there with the legends. Well, they are legendary, as it were. I've got to stop saying as it were. Anyway, but this album just totally cements it that even 20, 30 years into their career, they can still bring it. This, for me, just beat out everything else thrash-wise. Sepultura came close to being my thrash album of the year, but this, wow, if you like any kind of thrash at all, go check this album out. You will not be sorry. And if you like Creator but haven't checked them out for a few albums, they're back on form. Oh, trust me, they are back on form. In at number 4 on my list is my extreme metal album of the year, and it's got to go to the glorious, glorious return of the one and only Akaka, or however you pronounce it, with their new album Renaissance in Extremis. Now, I'll admit, when I first heard the first track that got sent out to the radio stations that include myself, because obviously I'm on that metal station, I was a bit dubious because it seemed they were going a new direction. There was no growls in the single, if I remember rightly, and I was a bit like, oh, is this how the album's going to be? So I've listened to the album a few times, and it's grown on me. If you're expecting old school blasting and everything, that style of Akaka, then you're going to be severely disappointed. This is a new, measured, more melodic Akaka, but no less heavy for it. Yes, there's still some death growls in there and everything. There's still the black metal in there, definitely, but they seem to have embraced their prog sort of leanings a bit more without going balls out prog and doing like 30-40 minute songs just to get to the chorus. So yes, in at number 4, I believe I said it was, 4, Akaka, Renaissance in Extremis. And now we're on to number 3, and here we are in 2017, and who has made it into my top 10? It's only bloody Gary Numan. Yes, Gary Numan and Savage, Songs from a Broken World. Wow, this was something I was not expecting, to be honest with you. Same with his live show as well, so I went and saw him on this tour, because he played locally to me, and he absolutely blew me away live, but I'd already been listening to the album for a while by that point. This is an absolute return to form, and if you've not been checking out Gary Numan in the last, I'd say 17 to 20 years, this is not your 80s synthwave sound that he became known for. Oh no, he's gone on full on sort of dark industrial, and with a bit of metal in there as well, and it suits him really, really well, and this album just highlights it. And one of the songs, My Name Is Ruin, has backing vocals from his daughter, whose name I've forgotten now, Persia, that's it, which suits it absolutely perfect. And the whole album is just, it's like a greatest hits of Gary Numan but brought bang up to date in 2017. So yes, go check it out. Gary Numan, Savage, in here at number 3. And we're up to the penultimate spot, number 2 of the 10 albums of the year for me personally. And it's a name that not many of you may be that familiar with. However, those of you who did see Gary Numan on his current tour, recent tour here in the UK, you probably will know it. It's Jayce Lewis and his new album, Millions. My God, this is an artist who has been really promising on his previous 2 albums, but never quite hit it right for me. I mean, I love those albums, but there's a few songs that maybe meandered a little bit and didn't quite hit the right notes for me to sort of love them fully, to put them on an album of the year list. However, Millions, he's stripped it back, he's gone pretty much fully electronic with the sounds. There is bass, but there's not guitars at all, apart from a guest spot from Brian May of Queen on here on the last track, We Are One. This is, I believe it's about 7 to 8 tracks of absolute genius. If you like your electronic music, stuff like Nine Inch Nails, Gary Numan, etc., you're going to enjoy this. And even if you don't, I still recommend you check this out. This is something new, something different, from an artist who deserves a lot more exposure than he's really getting, and deserves a lot more success. Also, go see him live, he's absolutely superb, and very nice guy. I actually interviewed him a couple of months ago. Really, really nice guy. He then, after those gigs, went off to work with Bert and C. Bell of Fear Factory to do the next Essential The Watchers album. So, slightly jealous of him, but what can I say? I wish him the best of luck in the world. But yeah, here at number 2, Jayce Lewis with Millions. Go check it out, because part 2 of this album will be out next year. Yes, he's done a 2-part album, and I'm looking very much forward to that. So here we are, my album of 2017. It's the Birthday Massacre and Under Your Spell. Good lord, how many of you didn't see this coming, considering I've been going on and on and on about this album on my radio show, during the podcast, on Facebook and everything, for the last 6 months. This was actually an album that was released literally on my birthday here in the UK. And what can I say about this album? It's the Birthday Massacre have not made a bad album. Let's get that straight out the way. They're a band that deserve a lot more success than they've sort of got, and thankfully Under Your Spell seems to be bringing them that success. I'll still stand by what I said in the review for it, that to me this is the masterpiece equivalent of something like Nine Inch Nails' Downward Spiral. In fact, you could kind of see this as a Downward Spiral 2017 version with a better looking singer, to be honest with you. Unless you happen to have a thing for Trent Reznor, which, fair enough, he's a good looking man, but anyway. Yeah, this album, it's probably the most personal album that the Birthday Massacre have ever done. It's very, very much a very sort of dark album, but the Birthday Massacre have this weird sort of ability to make something really dark and depressing kind of sound triumphant and uplifting, and that's not something that a lot of bands can do very well or succeed at. But the Birthday Massacre do it regularly, And also, I have to say, as a side note, interviewing Chibi this year was probably one of my favourite interviews this year. Every time I've interviewed her, she's been absolutely awesome. I've loved interviewing her. She's really fun to interview, really fun to speak to, and I really hope the band does well. So there you go, my album of 2017, go check it out. The Birthday Massacre, Under Your Spell. It's an absolute masterpiece, and if you don't believe me or don't agree with me, I'll bloody fight you for it. So guys, I just want to say a massive thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, hopefully you agreed with some of my choices at the very least for my albums of the year. I just want to say thank you very much for watching. Also, I do have a Patreon page if you wish to help support me continue running this channel. I also want to say a big apology for the last three and a half months where I've not been putting up that much content on the channel. Basically, I had a job that was keeping me quite busy, and by the time I got home from work I was absolutely knackered, to be honest with you. But now I'm back to doing the videos. I will be bringing you more content. I've got a couple of ideas in my head about what to do for future videos. New series, I will finish that top 100 albums of all time for me. That will be sort of done possibly over Christmas, hopefully, depending how busy I get with obviously Christmas shopping and everything. More content is coming your way. And also, I did mention earlier, the podcast is back. Yes, we recorded one last Friday. I've just got to get it all edited down and get it uploaded to the channel, and that will be hopefully happening fairly regularly, maybe at least 2 to 3 times a month, if not every week. We'll do our best. It all depends on everyone's sort of schedules. Anyway, yes, down the bottom there, well, on screen right now, you can see the link to the one only Patreon page. Please, if you do become a Patreon, I thank you very much. You help me continue doing this channel, and your money sort of helps fund the channel and help me to continue to live, which is quite a groovy thing. So thank you very much. I'll be back again soon. Don't forget to check out my radio show every Sunday from 2 PM GMT, 9 AM EST on thatmetalstation.com. The show is named the same as this channel. It is the Psychosin Project, and I bring you the best rock and metal from around the world, from signed and unsigned bands. Anyway, hope to see you in the chat room on Sunday or on the next video. Until then, have a great Christmas.